What's up, vinyl community? Welcome back to Dad's on a Budget Vinyl. My name is Mark. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Today I want to talk about Howe Gelb, Howeggelb. Howe Gelb has been making music now since 1975, and yet he's not a household name. Not that many people know of him, to my knowledge. I've never seen Howe Gelb mentioned on the or in the vinyl community. I've seen Giant Sand mentioned a time or two, but just not a whole lot of love shown on his records. And Howe Gelb is a true blue American original. Everything about the way the guy does music, everything about him is just a little bit different. And so I want to shine a light on him and his body of work today. I'm going to try not to take forever doing this because we've got a ton of material to look at. I'm going to give a little bit of background. I'm going to blast through a whole bunch of CDs, then I'm going to narrow it down to 5 records that I think really are essential, for any collection. Howe was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in 1956. The same year that Rainer Tasek came to America, 1956. Only Howe says that Rainer came to America via boat, and Howe Gelb, came to America via the birth canal. But 1956 is where it all began in America for both of them. 1972, flood came through and wiped out the family home. Also that year, Howe Gelb's dad moved and married and moved to Tucson, Arizona. For the next few years, Howe would spend his time going back and forth between Pennsylvania and Arizona. In 1975, there was a local NPR station in Pennsylvania that would allow you to come in. You had to have 20 minutes worth of music prepared, but they would give you a 2 or 3 hour time block in the studio to make a record. And according to Howe, that experience didn't go so well, but it certainly whetted his appetite for production work, studio work, how that whole thing goes down. So Howe moves to Arizona mid-70s, and at that time, there was no college radio, there was no local music scene. According to him, there was very little information on what to do, how to do it, that type of thing. They ended up finding a a studio in Los Angeles that would allow them to come in and record. And in about a day and a half, they recorded their first record for $400. Howe says that he got drunk enough at one of their shows that he gave that record or a copy of it to a manager of another band that was playing there. And within a month or 2 or 3, the manager called and said, "Hey, I've got someone in France that's interested in licensing your music." Howe called the guy, they talked, came up with a game plan where they would license Howe Gelb's music for 3 years for $1,000. And Howe said, this could work. And so he never signed with a major label. When you license your material, that means that at the end of the license, you get the rights to your music back. And so that was number one. That was one thing that was just completely different and set up his trajectory to be different than most recording artists. After a couple of records under their belt, it got to where they would advance them based on the previous record sales. So $1 per record. So if the record sold 2,000 copies, they would advance them $2,000, and Howe and the guys would try to go back into the studio and make a record for less than half or less than what they were advanced, and then they would hit the road. And that's how they fed themselves, although for quite a while they still had the typical LA Weekly deliveries, and that was during a brief period that they went out to LA, but also delivering pizzas and that type of thing. They still had to be subsidized to an extent. In 1984 and 1985, Howe Gelb, with Giant Sand and the band of Blackie Ranchit, released a couple of different records. Number one leaned a little bit more towards country, At the time, Howe said there was no good country music to buy, so we made our own. The other one, punk, had come out, which was a great relief to these guys because it was more about attitude and less about technical ability. And so they started coming out with these records, and you know, the more records you make, the more licensing money you have, and then you can go out on tour. And so it just became kind of this cycle. And fortunately for us, because of that cycle, we've got a lot of music. I think as of 2024, Howe Gelb's got 62 different releases that bear his name in one form or another. So how did it start for me? In 1993, I bought this comp, Sweet Relief. This is a tribute and benefit for Victoria Williams, a musician that had found out she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She didn't have health insurance like most musicians don't. And so these bands got together to raise some money for her. And of course, in 1993, I was a huge Pearl Jam fan. I bought it for the Crazy Mary track. But this record turned me on to so much other good music. One of the bands was Giant Sand. Their cover of Victoria Williams' Big Fish is a quirky, fun, snappy, poppy little song. Killer drums, imagine that. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But I just was intrigued. I was hooked. I wanted to find out more about them. I asked around. I found out that the next go-to would be Chore of Enchantment. I bought that, and I've been hooked ever since. Not long after that, I went into Half Price Books and found 7 or 8 of their CDs on the cheap, and so I snagged all of those. And since then, I've just been kind of collecting them like baseball cards. I want to read something real quick from Brian Hinton's excellent book, South by Southwest. Giant Sand hit the public consciousness with the stark and spiky Valley of Rain, issued in 1985, but still sounding ahead of the game. This is not comfortable listening. An oral equivalent of the stark monochrome cover, cacti under a dark sky, a featureless landscape, and not a human being in sight. Musically, Gelb has long admired the sparseness of Merle Haggard or Hank Williams. He gives cowboy tales a widescreen focus learned from the cinema. I like the idea of tracks being like they're small clips of film, and a lot of his music is like that. Really, to be honest with you, I said a moment ago, Merle Travis, Marty Robbins with a little bit of Neil Young, sprinkled in with a little bit of Thelonious Monk, and then maybe the vocal style of a Cormac McCarthy, and you've got kind of a Howe Gelb. The way he records, the way he writes, the way he sings, the way he plays guitar or piano, the way he tours, everything about him is different, okay? And I think borderline genius. And just like a Neil Young or a Bob Dylan or anybody else that's been around for a long, long period of time and has been extremely prolific during that time period, it's hard to love everything that they've done. And there are records for me that I may not ever listen to again, and there's other stuff that I listen to quite a bit. And so I just want to go through a real quick little time capsule here and show off some Howe Gelb CDs. These were Giant Sand CDs. These were all released on CD to begin with. A lot of them have been reissued on vinyl now. But 1985, they were just talking about Valley of Rain and that stark album cover. This is part of the CD reissue series on New West, and they've done a really, really wonderful job with that. So we're just going to blow through these real quick, and then at the end, I'm going to talk about five vinyls that I think are really essential. At the same time they came out with that, they also came out with the band of Blackie Ranchit. And what does it say on there? Where it all began, Howe Gelb's early recordings, 1984. But this is fantastic. Like I said, it's a little bit more country. Kurt Wagner from Lamb Chop is on it. A couple other folks are on it. But between these two bands, Howe now had an outlet, okay? and boy. So real quick before we move on to the rest of Giant Sand, Band of Blackie Ranchit, this is Sage Advice, another wonderful little record. I think that's Howe's daughter on the back. And then you've also got, let's see, Still Looking Good to Me, which is another fantastic little record. Giant Sand, Ballad of a Thin Line Man, and an early photo. You know, and I have to say real quick while we're talking about these, Howe Gelb has been responsible for helping a lot of other artists out. M. Ward, Matt Ward, Jason Lytle of Granddaddy, and of course, you know, Joey Burns and John Covertino were Giant Sand's rhythm section for years, bass and drums, and of course they left to form Calexico, which in my opinion took what I really loved about Giant Sand music, all those greater elements, the desert noir, the train sounds, the loneliness and the cacti and the mariachi and all of that, and form something whole of that vein. The only thing it's missing is Howe Gelb. So this is Storm, and another good little, next up we've got Glum. So I blow through these really quickly. Goods and Services. That picture actually reminds me of Kurt Wagner of Lamb Chop. Backyard Barbecue Broadcast. This is basically a live set. You know, their music was completely different, very improvisational. Not improvisational from a soloing standpoint, but really more from a song structure standpoint. Giant Sand rarely played the same song twice the same way. This is the official bootleg series, and I love this. This is Build Your Own Night. It's easy. Chore of Enchantment, which was what sucked me in, and of course we're going to talk more about that here in a moment. This is Cover Magazine. This is them doing covers, and just to give you an idea of where they come from, you've got a Marty Robbins cover, you've got X cover, you've got a Black Sabbath cover, you've got Sonny and Cher covered, you've got I mean, Fly Me to the Moon. The whole, it's excellent. So you can understand, once you know a little bit about this band, why they would choose those covers. But believe me, none of them sound a whole lot like the original, that's for sure. This is All Over the Map. That's a fantastic record, mostly live. I love that photo of Howe on the back there. This is The Excellent Provisions. And I think somewhere along the way I got my stacks mixed up, because I know that Love Songs came out before any of that other stuff did. Matter of fact, that came out in '88. Long Stem Rant came out in '89. Ramp, love it, came out in '91. Center of the Universe, which has been recently reissued on vinyl. And there's Howe, Joey, and John on the back. I love this album cover too. This is Purge and Slouch, and another good little lo-fi band photo. This is Blurry Blue Mountain. I love that. This is recently, well, not recently, but within the last 10 years or so, a lot of these have gotten reissued on vinyl for the first time. This is the excellent Tucson Country Rock Opera. I love that photo on the back there, if you can see that. This is Heartbreak Pass. Love that record as well, with this collective of wonderful musicians. You've also got Blackout. This is the Giant Sandwich, which is just like a collective of different things. It's got some Band of Blackie Ranchit material on it as well. A couple of other things to mention. Oh, Swerve. I don't think I talked about that. That's another great little lo-fi masterpiece. Arizona Amp and Alternator, which was a side project of his and Rainer's. Fantastic. Op 8, which was another side project of his, featuring Joey Burns and John Cupertino, but also Lisa Germano, which is fantastic. And then just a couple of little honorable mentions. This is Bread, Soup, and Struggle, which is a tribute to the Casa Maria, which is a mission in Tucson that feeds the homeless. This is excellent. Features Howe Gelb, also has a Calexico track on it. There's a fantastic track on here by Country Joe McDonald. It's just him on vocals and slide guitar. And then this is the tribute to Rainer Tasic. Rainer was diagnosed with brain cancer in the mid-90s. We lost him not too long after that. Just to give you an idea of what musicians think about this music, and Rainer in particular, you've got Giant Sam, but you've also got Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, Emmylou Harris, Evan Dando, Vic Williams and Mark Olson, the Jayhawks, Vic Chestnut, Chris McKay, PJ Harvey, the Drovers, Jonathan Richman. I mean, a lot of great names, and this is a fun little record to have. So that's all Giant Sam stuff. Along the way, Howe, like I said, he's extremely prolific and has put out a ton of solo material as well. This is the Little Sandbox, which features primarily, I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different Howe Gelb records and a little booklet. This is a wonderful little thing to have. And then a couple of other Howe Gelb solos. You've got The Coincidentalist. You've got Dust Bowl. You've got the Radian Verses. And you've got Snow Angel. So aside from the Band of Blackie Ranchit and Arizona Amp and Alterator and Giant Sand and Op 8, Howe Gelb also takes his music all over the world. He went up to Canada to record with a gospel choir. He went over to Cordoba, Spain to record with a band of gypsies. He's recorded with trip hop artists. He's recorded with, I mean, all kinds of people. The last record that he came out with that I'm going to mention just real quick is the Colorist Orchestra featuring Petta Brown. And this is a wonderful record. This is unlike anything. If anything, it kind of reminds me of maybe what Frank Zappa might be doing if he was still around. So, as promised, we've narrowed it down to 5 records that out of all of this stuff, I think really belong in every serious music lover's collection, okay? They're beautiful records. They're great records. The packaging is wonderful. I would seriously recommend all 5 of these. Number 1 is the excellent new Chore of Enchantment reissue that just came out earlier this year. This is a tour de force. Howe had just lost Rainer. I'm sure was in the valley of the dumps there for a while, but sometimes out of that tragedy, beautiful music can be made, and that is this record. And it's pretty hard to pigeonhole. It's pretty hard to peg. It opens up with an overture from one of Rainer's favorite operas, But Dusted for the Millennium, Punishing Sun, Extra Wide, Temptation of Egg, Wolfie, Astonished in Tucson. This music goes from being abrasive to beautiful, just like that. I remember one night I was on the way home from work. I had my vehicle at the time had a moonroof, and I had it open, and I had this on, and the moon was just big and beautiful and huge, and it just kind of slayed me. I just had one of those moments where I just had to pull the car over and just kind of enjoy it for a moment. But this is an excellent place to start. Giant Sand, Chore of Enchantment. And I believe this came out in 2000, okay, and was just finally put out on vinyl. Oh, I'm so glad. I wanted it for so long. It had been on vinyl before. It was just really, really expensive. Next up, one of my favorites, and this is the twofer. This is Snow Angel Like You, but it also includes Winging It, which is the live set. This is the album that Howe did with the Canadian Gospel Choir. It is not gospel music, but it does have that feel. And I love it. There are times when Only It Will Do, and songs like Get to Leave, Paradise Hereabouts, But I Did Not, Hey Man, The Farm, Nail in the Sky, track 9. Just absolutely fantastic and unlike anything else. And this is just one of my favorites. Well, all 5 of these that we're going to talk about. Gotta have it. Howe Gelb, Snow Angel. Let's talk about Alegrius. And if you've seen any of my videos, I think this is the 3rd video that I've mentioned this record. I mentioned it on the acoustic guitar video and just things that I pull quite a bit. But I love this record. This is Howe Gelb and the band of Gypsies. This is him going over to Cordoba, Spain to record with these wonderful musicians. Flamenco guitar, absolutely beautiful. I've said before, there is a video on YouTube of this group of musicians playing live in a little Spanish garden on a rooftop. This is one of the most beautiful things. It's beautifully filmed, but I just love watching those musicians in action. It's amazing. Check it out. Next up, this is Tucson. This is the country rock opera. So, you know, this features, you know, throughout the course of his recording, of course, he had bandmates and musicians that had met and formed the nucleus of Giant Sand in Arizona. But then as he would go and tour around Europe, he found other wonderful musicians that he wanted to collaborate with. And he would do an album with these guys and then an album with those guys. Well, this is Giant Sand, okay? And the reason for that is you've got 4 Arizonans, you've got 4 Danes, and then a host of other people. So it's a big record. It's a big sound. It's a country rock opera. The way that it starts with We Can Waltz is just absolutely fantastic. I believe WEXP presented this entire album live. You can watch that on YouTube, and that's fantastic as well. But this is exactly, you know, it's a song cycle, and I'm going to let you discover it for yourself. I don't know if I can do sound drops on this or not, so I'm choosing not to. But this is a fantastic record. I don't think that Howe wants to necessarily be pigeonholed as an Americana artist. I know that he said in one of his videos pretty vehemently that he's not a singer-songwriter. You'll have to go and watch that for yourself. And I don't think that he sees himself as being too Americana either. But he is American, and he does sing about cowboys and the West and that type of thing. And so, but whatever you want to call it, it's just an absolutely wonderful record. There's a song on here called Love Comes Over You. And I haven't been able to find it in the credits. To me, it sounds exactly like Devendra Banhart singing the vocal. But that song is absolutely beautiful. And this album has a lot of rare moments of just stark beauty like that. Absolutely wonderful. If you don't know it, pick it up, check it out. Giant Sand, Tucson. And last but not least, Giant Sand, Heartbreak Pass. When I first got this, I wore it out. My wife and my kids can tell you, yep, he did. I love these black and whites here. Songwriting is top notch. Eventually is beautiful. Texting Feist is fantastic. You just got to hear it to believe it. Hurt and Habit, Transponder, Man on a String, Eye Opening. Eye Opening is absolutely a beautiful track. But I just love it. I mean, you see a group of guys, you see a group of people like this, they just look infinitely interesting, and you just know that what you're going to hear is going to be some really, really good stuff. So I was so afraid that today's video was going to go on and on and on and on and on that I tried pretty hard to keep it short, concise, and to the point. I could have talked about some of these things a lot longer. Hopefully, what I've hit on is enough to get your interest peaked. If you don't know Howe Gelb, check him out. He's unlike anybody else. Start with these 5 records. I can almost guarantee you that you'll love these 5 records. I can't make any promises on the rest of it, although you will be entertained, and it is all very interesting. All right, listen, I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out today, listening to my long-winded Howe Gelb presentation. If you've enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe. More importantly, comment. I love the comments, and let me know what you think about Howe Gelb and this video. And in the meantime, keep listening, have fun, take care. I'll see you next time on Dad's No Budget Vinyl. Take care, bye. Take care, y'all. Bye.